With that being said, we also found out that Quadajah Johnson is indeed pregnant at this moment, 7 weeks pregnant, and her attorneys really tried to drive home that point with the judge in court today for her to be released. Yeah. The judge made some pretty straight up statements, one being that when this shooting happened, at one point, the actual alleged shooter, Quadajah Johnson in this case, fist bumped the father that she and Romeca Blackman have in common with their children, fist bumped him after the shooting. And the judge said, someone like that, basically, I'm essentially going to, melt down his words into essentially what he said, does not deserve to be out roaming the streets. I think that's a very inflammatory thing to find out from witnesses that happened. Yeah. And witnesses, I do want to point out the fact that in this case, you got to give it up to the witnesses here to even get us to this point in this case. Because even in the video that you saw, the aftermath of this shooting, these officers that responded, they responded to a chaotic scene. And many of them look like this may have been the first day on the job. I mean, quite frankly. Not really understanding who was the shooter, not really understanding who were the witnesses, people walking through the crime scene. We saw that in the video, and so the witnesses said, hey, that's the shooter. That's the person you need to be arresting. That's the person that you need to look out for. And another thing that came out in court in terms of what witnesses saw and heard, they said after that first shot was fired, there was a pause. Why is that important? Somebody may say, okay, why is that important? That's important because you fire one shot at someone, they're down, you pause, and then you ramp up again, and other shots are then fired. Why?
Details came out in court today for the hearing of Quadajah Johnson, including the fact that this was the first time when the shooting unfolded that she allegedly laid eyes on Romeca Blackman. We know that she and Romeca Blackman, they both have children by the same man. So a lot of information came out in court today. Witnesses saying what they saw, but you were there. What's your reaction to what you heard came out in court today?
When I heard it, I'm just looking, it was unbelievable, but I was there. And I know for a fact none of that happened, how they just explained it. But my truth will get out here, and I hope everybody understand. That's really it. I can't even say too much right now, because it's just gonna feel like I'm going against them, they going against me. We just going back and forth. But the truth is going to come out.
She's finally in custody. After 3 agonizing months of waiting, protesting, and demanding answers, Quadajah Holly Johnson was arrested on December 3rd, 2025, and charged with first-degree murder in the death of Romeca Meeks. The woman who allegedly shot a mother multiple times in broad daylight, then celebrated in the street, is now behind bars facing the justice system. And the details that came out in her court hearing? They're even more disturbing than we initially thought. Welcome back to Crime Bitz. If you've been following Romeca Meeks' case with us since September, you know this has been a long and painful journey for her family. Today, we're bringing you the major update you've been waiting for. The charges have been filed, the courtroom was packed, and the judge made it crystal clear this was not self-defense. Let's break down everything that's happened in the last 5 days. For those who need a quick refresher, on September 8th, 2025, 31-year-old Romeca Meeks went to drop off her child at school in Chicago's Chatham neighborhood. She was confronted by 31-year-old Quadajah Johnson, the father's girlfriend. According to prosecutors, after an altercation, Johnson walked to her car, got her gun, came back, and shot Romeca multiple times in the street. Romeca died at the scene. Johnson was detained, but shockingly released 48 hours later without charges, sparking outrage from the family and community. That's where we left off. Now here's what's happened since. December 3rd, 2025, nearly 3 months to the day after Romeca's death. At exactly 12 p.m., law enforcement officers arrived at Quadajah Johnson's home in Des Plaines, Illinois, at the 9200 block of West Senate Drive. This time, there would be no release. This time, she was being formally charged with first-degree murder. Think about what this moment meant for Romeca's family. For 87 days, they had been living in limbo. For 87 days, they watched as the woman they believe killed their loved one walked free, living her life, while Romeca's 6-year-old son grew up without his mother. For 87 days, they organized, protested, created petitions, and refused to let Romeca's name be forgotten. And finally, on December 3rd, they got the news they had been desperately waiting for. Romeca's mother, Tina McMiller, had spent those 3 months in agony. In interviews, she described how the delay was tearing the family apart, how they couldn't properly grieve because they were too busy fighting for accountability. The community rallied behind them. The Change.org petition gained thousands of signatures. People across Chicago and beyond were demanding to know why there had been no charges. The pressure worked. Johnson was taken into custody and transported to face the charges that many believe should have been filed back in September. The next day, December 4th, was when things got really intense. Quadajah Johnson appeared in court for her detention hearing, and the courtroom scene was powerful. Romeca's family and friends showed up in force, many wearing pink shirts with her image, determined to show the judge and prosecutors that this case mattered, that Romeca's life mattered. There were so many supporters that the original courtroom couldn't accommodate them all. The judge had to move the proceedings to a larger courtroom just to fit everyone.
We had to be moved from 102 to courtroom 700 because of the support that's behind us. We overfilled the courtroom and the other people couldn't sit down to hear their cases. So it was transferred to 700.
Can you imagine that moment? The show of solidarity, the sea of pink shirts, all there for Romeca. But what happened inside that courtroom is what really matters. For the first time, prosecutors laid out their case in detail, and what they revealed was chilling. According to the prosecution's account, after the initial confrontation between Romeca and Johnson, Johnson didn't just defend herself and leave. She walked back to her car, retrieved her gun, returned to where Romeca stood, and fired multiple shots. But here's the part that made everyone in that courtroom sit up. After shooting Romeca multiple times, Johnson allegedly fist-bumped the baby's father while Romeca lay dying in the street. Let that sink in for a moment. A woman was dying. A mother would never see her children again. And her alleged killer was allegedly celebrating. Johnson's defense attorney tried to argue self-defense. They pointed to the protective orders Johnson had filed against Romeca, orders dating back to December 2024, with additional filings through the summer of 2025. On the surface, these orders might seem to support a claim that Johnson feared Romeca, that she felt threatened, that she was protecting herself. But Romeca's family has always maintained a different story. They allege these protective orders were strategic, that Johnson was deliberately creating a paper trail to justify future violence. They claim she was building a case against Romeca, documenting interactions so she could later claim self-defense if she decided to take lethal action. And this raises a critical question that I want you to weigh in on. If someone files multiple protective orders against another person, then arms themselves and kills that person, does that look more like self-defense or premeditation? Should those protective orders be seen as evidence of genuine fear or evidence of planning? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because this is going to be a major issue at trial. And if you've been following Romeca's case with us from the beginning, hit that like button so I know you're here for this update. And make sure you're subscribed to Crime Bitz because this case is far from over. The judge listened to both sides. He reviewed the evidence presented, he considered the timeline of events, and then he made a ruling that sent a clear message. Celebrating in the street after shooting someone is not self-defense. Think about the sequence of events as the prosecution described them. Johnson and Romeca had a confrontation. At some point, Johnson had the opportunity to leave, to walk away, to de-escalate. Instead, according to prosecutors, she went to her car, armed herself, came back, and opened fire. Then, with Romeca dying in the street, she allegedly celebrated with a fist bump. The judge said what many had been thinking. That's not how someone acting in self-defense behaves. That's not the action of someone who feared for their life and had no choice. That's the action of someone who made a calculated decision to kill. Johnson was denied bond. And here's another detail that came out during the hearing. She's now 7 weeks pregnant. She'll be spending her pregnancy in custody, awaiting trial for first-degree murder. After the hearing, Tina McMiller spoke to reporters outside the courthouse, and her words captured both the relief and the ongoing pain the family is experiencing. "This has been such a hard 3 months," she said. "It's been painful. It's been terrible. I mean, we've been torn apart. I want justice so I can have peace of mind. It won't bring her back, but it will be a little peace now."
And all I want is to be done, is justice to be done. I want justice so I can have a peace and mind. It won't bring her back, but it will be a little peace now. It feel like a big bundle just been lifted off my head and my heart.
That phrase, "it won't bring her back," is something we hear from victims' families so often in cases like this. Because that's the harsh reality. No arrest, no charges, no conviction can undo what happened on September 8th. Romeca's son still doesn't have his mother. Her family still has an empty seat at the dinner table. Nothing can change that. But accountability matters. Justice matters. And after 3 months of uncertainty, the family finally has what they've been fighting for. A day in court where the full truth of what happened can be examined, where witnesses can testify, where evidence can be presented, and where a jury can decide whether Quadajah Johnson committed murder or acted in self-defense. So where does the case go from here? Johnson is being held without bond in Cook County Jail, awaiting trial on first-degree murder charges. The prosecution will build their case, gathering witness testimony, forensic evidence, and any video footage from the scene. They'll work to prove that this wasn't a split-second decision made in fear, but a deliberate act of violence. The defense will present their version of events. They'll use those protective orders to argue Johnson had legitimate reasons to fear Romeca. They'll likely paint a picture of an ongoing conflict, escalating tensions, and a woman who felt she had no choice but to protect herself. A jury will hear both sides and make a decision. And that decision will determine whether Quadajah Johnson spends the rest of her life in prison or walks free claiming self-defense. But here's what we need to remember as this case moves forward. The trial won't just be about what happened in those few minutes on September 8th. It'll be about patterns of behavior, about those protective orders, about the relationship dynamics between all three people involved. It'll be about whether someone who walks away from a confrontation, arms themselves, and returns to shoot someone can claim they were acting in self-defense. And perhaps most importantly, it'll be about whether celebrating after taking someone's life is ever consistent with genuine fear and self-preservation. This case has implications that reach far beyond Romeca's family and the South Side of Chicago. It raises questions about how we handle domestic disputes involving shared custody and complicated relationship dynamics. It asks us to consider how protective orders should be viewed when violence eventually occurs. Are they always evidence of genuine fear, or can they sometimes be weaponized? It also highlights the power of community advocacy. Would charges have been filed without the family's tireless campaigning, without the petitions, the protests, the media appearances? We can't know for sure, but the 3-month delay raises uncomfortable questions about how justice works and who has to fight hardest to receive it. On September 8th, 2025, Romeca Meeks kissed her 6-year-old son goodbye and told him to have a great day. It was the last time he would see his mother alive. That image, that final goodbye, that handwritten lunchbox note she posted on social media, has become a symbol of everything this case represents: a life cut short, a family shattered, and a community demanding justice. 3 months later, on December 3rd, that fight for justice reached a critical milestone. Quadajah Johnson is behind bars. The charges have been filed. The courtroom was packed with people wearing pink, refusing to let Romeca be forgotten. And a judge made it clear that what happened on September 8th doesn't look like self-defense. But this is just the beginning. The trial will be where the real battle takes place, where both sides present their evidence and arguments, where a jury decides what really happened that morning in Chatham. Crime Bitz will be following this case every step of the way, from pretrial hearings through the verdict. If you want to stay updated on Romeca's case and make sure you don't miss any developments, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Share this video to help keep Romeca's story in the public eye and to support her family's continued fight for justice. And let me know in the comments, do you think the 3-month delay in filing charges was justified by the need for a thorough investigation? Or do you believe charges should have been filed immediately in September? Do those protective orders make you think differently about this case? Or do they seem suspicious given what allegedly happened afterward? Your perspective matters, and I genuinely want to hear what you think. This is Crime Bitz, where we don't just report the news, we dig deeper, we ask the hard questions, and we never forget the victims. Romeca Meeks deserves justice, her son deserves answers, and we'll be here covering every moment until this case is resolved. Rest in peace, Romeca. Your family hasn't given up, your community hasn't forgotten you, and we'll keep telling your story until justice is served.